Hi, starting today, we are going to look at how to answer the SPM questions, and A is it. Now, so this is the SPM biology paper 4551/2, biology paper 2, and basically this paper is divided into two sections. We have section A and section B. Section A comprises of 5 questions, each carries 12 marks. So section A itself will give you 60 marks. Section B, on the other hand, has 4 questions. Out of these 4, you have to choose 2, and each carries 20 marks. So from here, you will be able to get 40 marks. Now, so let's start by looking questions number 1. Alright, so basically section A and section B, they are equally important. Now we have to, if you want to get A plus, make sure that you score in both sections. Now this is the first question, section A, questions number 1. So diagram 1. Now this part, if you still remember, now every questions must have four components. Alright, so this is what we call a stem question. So it um, tells you the information about this diagram or questions. Now, so uh, it shows the structure of a plant cell. So from here, you know, oh, this is not just a drawing or a room. This is actually a plant cell. And then this one is known as stimulus. And stimulus is our good friend in examination, so it helps us to get a picture of plant cell. And then we have the questions. The question has 2 components here. So one is known as task word. This is a task word, and we have the keywords. So we have keywords number 1 and keywords number 2 here. So in examination, as long as you see the word "and" here, remember to put a double slash on it. Okay, we have to explain them differently. So task word is name. So how to score this question? Now, first of all, let's look at the stimulus. It's a plant cell. So what is P? Label the diagram first, because if you label the diagram properly, you can actually use the terms here, yeah, to help you to explain. So this is cell wall. Q is cell wall, and Q. If Q is an organelle, so Q must be vacuum. All right. So if Q refers to specific membrane, then Q is tonoplast. Now what about R? If R is an organelle, so R refers to nucleus. However, if you look at this diagram carefully, it is pointing to something inside. Okay, the darkened structure here. And then in the question itself, it is not even mentioned whether the PQRS are organelle or not. So it's just structure. So we have to direct our answer specifically to that structure. Then what about S? What about S? So S is basically another organelle here. So this is R. This is the rough endoplasmic reticulum. So in examination, make sure that you know how to spell rough endoplasmic reticulum. Yeah, because we are not going to accept RER as the answer. So R here is the chromosome. Okay, so first of all, we are going to name structure R and S. So what is R? R is chromosome or sister chromatid. We also accept the answer as chromatid. Now, if you look at the peraturan pemakahan, or the answer seems okay. So bracket means this term is optional, so you can choose to write or not to write. However, if you say R, reject, okay, reject that answer. So homologous chromosome and chromatid are not going to be accepted. It is because R here doesn't refer to a pair of chromosome. Yeah, it refers to just one chromosome here. And then since we can see the chromosome, that means to say that the chromatin has actually condensed and become visible under the light microscope. So in an uncoiled form, perhaps okay, we accept chromatin as the answer, but this is already in a condensed form. So we have to, unfortunately, we have to reject this answer. And then S is rough endoplasmic reticulum. So we reject answers such as rough ER or RER. All right. So make sure that you know how to spell the term correctly. If the task word is named and your spelling is wrong and we can't even pronounce it properly, so we are not going to get the marks. By the way, okay, now let's look at B2, B1. State. State is our task word. The main component. This is keyword number 1, which forms structure R. So if you look at structure R, what is structure? What is structure R? Oh, structure R is chromosome. So what is the main component? The main component here refers to DNA or deoxyribonucleic acid. So DNA itself is a specific term or terminology. So you don't have to be afraid for not being able to write to spell the deoxyribonucleic acid out. Okay, because we also accept DNA as as an answer. Now number 2, draw and label. So there are 2 task words here. So this is task word number 1, and then we have task word number 2. The basic unit of the main component, which is named in 1B1. So if you name it wrongly, then unfortunately you might get it wrong in B2. So make sure that you know what is the main component of chromosome. It must be DNA. And then what is the basic unit? This is our keyword number 1. Basic unit, or actually the monomer of DNA. It is the nucleotide. Alright, so this monomer is actually nucleotide. And nucleotide has three parts: the phosphate group, pentose sugar, and nitrogenous base. So drawing itself will give you 1 mark, labeling itself will give you another mark. So make sure that the line here is drawn properly. It is linked to the carbon. Now, this corner has a carbon atom and this corner has another carbon atom here. Alright. Now, so by doing so, you'll be able to get 2 marks. And C, the cell in diagram 1.1 is immersed in distilled water for an hour. Now, so this itself is a STEM questions. Alright, so we were told that the cell in that diagram is immersed in distilled water. So don't skip this sentence, it's important. So it will guide you what to write. So basically from here I know that this is a plant cell, and this plant cell is right now immersed in distilled water. So distilled water by right is a hypotonic solution compared to the cell sap of plant cell, and we have immersed it for 1 hour. Okay, it's long enough. Now C1, explain. My task word here, explain what will happen to structure Q. So this is my task word. This is keyword number 1. We want to know what happens to keyword number 2. So what is Q? Let's recall Q. Okay, Q is vacuum, right? So I can't. Now, I mean, of course, Q can be tonoplast because the questions never state that Q must be an organelle. So Q can be tonoplast technically, but in our explanation, what can we talk about Q? So what will happen to the tonoplast when the cell is immersed in distilled water? So it's hard to write, right? We have not even seen such a a phenomenon or any experiment about it, yeah, in our textbook. So Q should be vacuum and not tonoplast. So P1 here, what will happen? So first of all, I will mention that, okay, Q, structure Q or the vacuum expands, or I say that the size or the volume of Q increases. No. So single slash here means it's either one. Okay, you can mention vacuum or Q. So double slashes here means to say that this is actually a separate sentence. Yeah, you can either write this sentence or this sentence. Yeah, either one will do. Now, so okay, we have stated what happens to the structure Q. Now we are going to explain about our P1. So why Q expands? It is because water diffuses into vacuum by osmosis. And as a result, the vacuum or the Q pushes the cytoplasm or the plasma membrane to cell wall or P. Or I can choose to state uh, this creates a turgor pressure that pushes the cytoplasm against the cell wall. And then actually there is one point here, okay, that I can think of. It is because, or we can still continue explaining. It is because what? Because distilled water is hypotonic to cell sap of the plant cell. Because if distilled water is not hypotonic to it, so water is going to diffuse out of vacuum, causing the vacuum to shrink. But in this case, distilled water is hypotonic to cell sap, so that's why water diffuses into the vacuum, causing the vacuum to expand. All right. So 3 marks. Okay, basically in SPM, peraturan pemakan, basically there will be more than 3 points, or three possible accepted answers. Now D, this is C2. Explain why. My task word is explain why the cell. So don't relate it to vacuum, don't relate it to other organelles. Relate it to cell. This is my keyword number one. Keyword number one does not burst. Keyword number two, when it is immersed in distilled water. So look at it. This is C2. So C2 is part of question C. So C1 and C2 actually share the same STEM question. Now, so why the cell doesn't burst when it was immersed in distilled water for an hour? Now, so this is because so it has cell wall, and then continue explaining. So what is the characteristic of cell wall that is able to prevent the cell from bursting? The cell wall is made up of cellulose. Cellulose is strong, or you say cell wall is strong, rigid, or tough. That provides the mechanical support to maintain the shape of cells. Alright, or we can say that actually the cell wall is rigid or is strong, that is able to withstand water pressure from vacuum. Okay, so as you can see here, the the marks are two, but there are more than 2 points that we can write. Okay, try to be generous a bit when writing. Okay, don't be too prudent. So if you have more points to share, please state them out. Now look at D. Diagram 1.2 shows two examples of tissues in plant. Okay, don't never relate it to animals. So these are tissues in plants. So the first one is meristematic tissue and the other one is colon-chyma tissue. So it has been labeled for us here. So right now, based on diagram 1.2, based on this stimulus, so we have two stimuli here. So state a characteristic of each tissue. So based on this diagram, so as I mentioned before, stimulus is our good friend. So we are going to refer to it. So meristematic tissues, for example, this tissue consists of small cells. Okay, the cells are small. Or we can say that the wall is actually quite thin, and the nucleus, as compared to the size of the cell, is large, and the cytoplasm is dense. No vacuum. Yep, definitely we can't even see a vacuum here. So this is nucleus, and this is the cytoplasm with no vacuums at all. and the cells are actively dividing. Can you see that? So perhaps uh, this is like a dividing cell, and then um, the cell basically look alike. So that means to say that the cells have not undergone cell differentiation. Now, so you can choose just one mark here. So you can choose any one to write. Now, what about coloncyma tissue? All right. So based on this diagram, we see okay, it has a large vacuole, and then the cell wall at the corner is actually thicker. All right, and then the thickening of the cell wall is actually uneven. Okay, so there are places okay that are thin, and then there are also places that are thick. So what is the characteristic? So it's uneven. For example, it has unevenly thickened cell wall, or we say that the thickened cell wall is at the corner. The tissue has large vacuole, or the cells have large vacuole, and then the tissue has undergone cell differentiation, or we say the cells have undergone cell differentiation. So either one, Nick, you just got to choose, okay, one to write. Now, you might ask me, so what if I write two characteristics out? So I'm sorry, we are going to mark the first one. So let's say in your question or your answer script, okay, you mentioned that okay, the meristematic tissue consists of big cell, and again you are not sure, so you write the second answer. Okay, you say that the tissue has thin cell wall. So what am I going to mark? Now the first one is wrong, the second one is correct, but unfortunately we are not going to mark the second one because the question already asked for a characteristic. So if you are not sure about your answer, make sure that okay you prioritize answer that you have more confidence with. All right. Okay. Yep. So we are done with questions number one. So basically, from the first questions, we learned to identify the STEM questions, the stimulus, the task word, and the keyword. So when the task word is named, make sure that you know how to spell the name correctly. If the task word is explain how or explain why, make sure that okay you state the fact first, okay, followed by a few explanation, and then try to be generous a bit. Don't be too prudent in writing. Give more points, give more elaboration. Good. So and then if the questions ask for one characteristic or a characteristic, make sure that you you give your best shot, give your best answer. So I'm going to see you again in questions number two. See you.